Listen, if it's free, it's me. Okay. So hello, shout out to all the buyers. If it's free, it's me. Like, why would you go at it alone?
Exactly.
It is at no cost to you to use representation.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Q&A session of episode 1. I'm here with my friend, family, and real estate agent, Janet.
Hi, everybody. My name is Janet Temidayo, and I am a licensed real estate salesperson with the Eklund Gomes team.
Welcome. All right, so today we're going to cover some Q&A from episode 1. I wanted you guys to get a professional perspective.
That's me.
And so we're going to go through each of the steps that I covered and cover some of the questions that you guys had for me. So for step 1, what to purchase and how much home can we afford? You all sent some questions our way, and we wanted to start off with just addressing what type of property you purchase. How do you really decide on that? I touched on co-ops versus condos, single family home versus multifamily. And there's also income-driven property. So I wanted Janet to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So as an agent, I've done co-ops, I've done condos, I've done new development, and I've also done what's known as an HDFC property, which is essentially, in layman's term, income-driven. So it's supposed to be affordable. It's a great starter home, you know, for someone that has, you know, some funds, maybe not a lot, but they want to, you know, kind of get their first home. So all that being said, let's start with HDFC. It's income based. So therefore there's an income cap and you can't go past that cap. Otherwise you don't qualify. So that's the main thing. Co-op. It's a, you're basically owning into a share of the cooperation. So that means you may own, you know, 100 shares, you may own 250 shares. It just depends on, you know, how much you're purchasing. There's a lot of rules that most of the time that comes with a co-op. So, you know, you're essentially going to be in front of a board and there's, you know, more things to that. But the main thing to remember is that you're owning shares. So you don't, it's not real property. And so if you want to own real property, condo is the way that you want to go. Depending on what it is that you're trying to do, if you are looking for flexibility, then you're more than likely going to want to go condo. If you're looking for, you know, maybe lower price point, lower monthlies, so meaning your maintenance and things like that, then you may go co-op. But then if you're also looking for, you know, you have a small liquid asset and you want to be able to use that to purchase a home, then you may want to look into, and you don't have a lot of income, then you may want to look into doing an HDFC property. For multifamilies, multifamilies are great investments, especially if you plan on living in the home, which you really should with a multifamily if it's your first purchase. Live in the home in the owner's unit, and then you rent out the additional spaces. So it could be 1 or 2 units, maybe 3 in the building. And then you're now getting income, and that income is essentially paying for you to live there while you are, you know, having an investment. So that's what's great about multifamilies. And then of course, family homes is pretty straightforward. It's a single family home. If that's going to be your forever home, then that's a great purchase. But those type of buildings are a little bit more higher in purchase price.
A lot more.
Yeah. A little bit more higher in purchase price, as Oye has clearly seen her and Jeff. And of course your monthlies or what you're paying in, you know, taxes and all of that is also a little bit more increased.
Exactly. And so that's why we decided on condo, because for us, co-ops being a share in the building, knowing that we wanted to rent out this unit in the future didn't really make sense for us. So we went the condo route. And I think for us, maybe 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to live here and then rent it out in the future when we move on to our forever home.
And it's very important if you are of the mindset of, you know, Oye and Jeff, which is, you know, in the future, we want to invest this property. It's very important to pick the right property in the right location that you want, that will now provide you that investment or that great investment.
All right. So question number 2, how did you save up for the purchase? Okay. Let's kick this off from your perspective, and I'll speak about, you know, what our process was towards it.
Okay. So, I mean, general advice, I would give any buyer that comes to me and says, I want to purchase, but I don't know how to start, or I don't know what to save. Most lenders have something called a pre-qualification, And so that's what you do before you actually get the pre-approval.
Right.
So you need to know what you can actually afford,
Right.
right? Based on your credit score, based on your income,
Right.
and other assets that you may have.
Right.
So therefore, get the pre-qualification. Even if you have a year-long plan to purchase something,
exactly.
get the pre-qualification, see what you can potentially afford, because it's only a pre-qual. It's not a pre-approval or actual letter that says like, hey, this is what you can afford. This is what the bank is willing to give you. So get a pre-qualification, and then you can kind of start your saving process. And, you know, the best way is really going to be like your liquid assets. So whatever you're making from your job, whatever you're making from several different businesses. And I think you mentioned, you know, one of the things that you guys opted not to do was you wanted to use your own personal money, not business funds. So however it is that you plan on doing it. And to be clear, you can't always use a business to purchase a home. So that's a whole another conversation. Exactly. But you can call me for that.
Exactly. And just to touch on that, exactly. I think for us, it was really about, okay, we have these multiple streams of income, but we wanted to put it all into one account. Being that we were going to use that account for the pre-qualification, you kind of need that one statement that you can show the lenders. And so when we did the pre-qualification, it was just really just going online, finding a few lenders to kind of see what, and they didn't run our credit score. So that's something that was critical. With pre-qualification, it was really just to get a feel for what we can afford. And at that point, when we saw the number that 3 lenders, I think we went with Bank of America, Cross Country Mortgage, did a pre-qualification, and Rocket Mortgage, as I mentioned in an episode. When we saw that pre-qualification, we then used that about a year before to start saving up vigorously. We were saving up before, but that was when we were focused to that number. Yeah. All right. So another question was how best to access assistance programs from New York City. Now, we're still at the pre-qualification stage, right? So at this point, we haven't really gotten too deep into it, but I did start the research on what's out there in terms of what can help with down payments, closing costs, or any type of first-time homebuyers assistance. What we found is the New York City government website was very helpful, and it was separate from the lender assistance programs. I do want to make a point about that. When I was on the New York City government website, they were giving more New York State related assistance programs, and the best way to verify if we were qualified for these programs was really to just send it to the lender that gave the pre-qualification to say, hey, found this program. Is it relevant to my entire financial package when I'm working with you all? Correct. Is this something that would make sense? However, Janet did provide us with a preferred lender list, and some lenders have their own assistance programs, correct?
Yep, they sure do. So some lenders have their own products that they can give you, their own programs. So you definitely always want to ask a lender, are there any programs that you think might work with, you know, my process and me wanting to purchase? But yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right. So when we got the pre-qualification letters, one of the things that we were thinking about as we're saving was, okay, do we have to save 20%? Can we do 10%? Can we put a little less down? And so I started a casual conversation with Janet at that point, just to kind of get her feel for what's the best amount to bring to the table. And it really was 20%, and she'll explain why.
Okay, so listen, I know we all don't want to have to spend more than, you know, we want to or can afford or whatever the case is. But the reality is that New York is a little bit different than most states that you'll go into. While, you know, you have the opportunity to use an FHA loan or, you know, other means of assistance, not every building or not every property is going to allow for that. So therefore, we go by the standard rule of thumb, which is 20% down. One of the things to remember is that for a seller or for a sponsor, whoever it is that you're purchasing from, it is a lot more of security for them if you're putting down 20% versus 3%. So it's a little, I mean, from a buyer's perspective, it's a little bit selfish, right? It's a little bit of a selfish mindset, but I mean, everyone wants to be protected. So whether it's buyer, seller, whatever the case. So 3% of 500,000 is a lot less than 20% of 500,000. Or before closing day, you decide now, okay, I'm willing to take the risk. I don't want to move forward with this anymore. I'll lose my deposit. You know, you can do the, you can pretty much figure out, like, you can walk away from 17,000 versus $100,000. You know? So that's kind of like the way they look at it. So all that being said, I always tell buyers, have the 20%.
Right.
Every product and every property, every building is different.
Right.
So therefore, some buildings will allow you to do the FHA loan, depending on which area or neighborhood you're in.
Exactly.
Some buildings, you know, some condos will allow you to put down 10%,
Right.
5% at contract signing, 5%, you know, at the closing table.
Right.
And then there are some buildings that will allow you to use different products, right? That maybe lenders may offer you. So whether it's a down payment assistance, whether it's, you know, assistance with your closing costs, but you won't know until you get to the table. So we always go by the standard rule, to be 20% down.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, that really was the best way to go. We felt more confident going in, and you felt like a stronger buyer with that number.
And that's the other part is you are a stronger buyer when you're at 20%. If you're coming less and now someone swoops in and they're, and trust me, it happens. Okay. It happens. So you want to put yourself in the best light. And if you have a good agent, hey, you'll make sure to be in the best light.
Exactly.
And just one rule of thumb, just for buyers, if you're going to utilize an agent and you really, you know, you really should put your trust in that agent until they show you otherwise. I can't tell you how important that is. Because I think as buyers, we always want to like feel like, you know, you want to make the decision yourself, but that's why you have help. So, you know.
Yeah. And that leads me to the next question. A few of you, more than a few of you, asked about what's the best way to find an agent, especially in New York City. For myself, I think word of mouth. Your friends, family, co-workers, other folks have tried possibly purchasing in New York City. It's always good to kind of start at that route. They would have had their experiences and would want to share that with you. So start with your circle. So in my case, my circle, you know, Janet. I don't know if there's other ways though that people could find, say they don't know any, you know.
I mean, yeah, I would probably say a referral is going to be your best option. One thing you can do is that, you know, you can, you know, look up and research what are the top like firms, and maybe even possibly what are the top teams, right? I'm on
area.
I'm on a pretty big team, so like, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but like you know, we're good. We're really good. And everybody really does know what they're doing and has been in the industry for years. And we have the support and the resource of our team leads.
And I'm not sure if you all know, but your agent is free to you as a buyer, you know, so why not? Why would you not want to have someone help guide you? And I just wanted you to talk about that too a little bit more.
Listen, if it's free, it's me. Okay. So hello, shout out to all the buyers. If it's free, it's me. Like, why would you go at it alone?
Exactly.
It is at no cost to you to use representation. The seller, generally speaking, I would probably say 98 or 99% of the time pays the fee, or pays the commission. So, all that being said, yeah, your agent should have all the tools and the resources to provide you. You know, we have a very a custom home buyer's guide that gives you everything from closing costs to step by step to stats, you know, so and you know, shout out to Eklund Gomes, like they really like put together something unique and beautiful for buyers.
Very helpful.
So we have the tools and we provide you with that resources, but
All right. So what best ways to search for properties? New York City has a few major search engines that you could use. We preferred StreetEasy. There's others, Trulia, Zillow, Redfin, there's others. But why we liked StreetEasy more than the others is because you were able to specifically filter by condos. Every other search engine, we're grouping condos and co-ops together, which, as Janet mentioned, are not the same thing. So for us, the fact that StreetEasy specifically allowed us to filter by condo was very helpful. And also, we kind of knew the neighborhoods we wanted, right? However, while we were using search engines, Janet was also using her kind of like off-market MLS software. So if you want to explain that a little bit too as well.
So it's basically kind of like our we call it an RLS, but New York has what's called REBME. And so most brokerages should fall under REBME, because that's pretty much the umbrella that like houses brokerages, and it's kind of how we do our broker to broker deals, which is majority, you know, of the transactions in New York. So all that being said, we are able to search within our RLS or MLS system with what our like sister brokerages have, as far as like the listing. So all those listings that we have on our RLS is what is feeding into StreetEasy.
Right.
So it's nice because from the consumer standpoint, StreetEasy is like the perfect search engine tool.
Right.
So while Oyin is looking at searching for homes on StreetEasy, I'm seeing the same homes, but what's happening is that we also have our own platform that's a client-facing platform that we utilize. So we set up your profile, we give you access, and then you're also able to search on that platform.
Correct.
But also build a list, comment on it in real time. And it's like, she doesn't have to like call me every second or text me every second. She can literally comment on each listing and say, hey, love that. This is okay, but like, you know, I don't love X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
And then we started kind of like building a list. We did a little bit of both, I think. I think
it was like a tag team for sure.
We really did tag team it. And I like to work like that. It's great because when she's able to search and she finds things, we can now come together and, you know, compare and contrast essentially.
All right. So now you found the one. How do you best negotiate a deal and hopefully get in contract? That was a great question because first finding the one was difficult in itself, trying to narrow down exactly what we wanted. But when we did find the one, we had to make sure that our lender, agent, everybody was aware that we were now moving towards this one and get everyone kind of prepared for it. And we really just had to work with our agent to create a deal, right? It's all about coming in with that deal so that you can then hopefully get that deal approved and move into contract. But I'll let Janet talk about that.
So, you know, first and foremost, the way to really best negotiate is get a great agent, right? First and foremost. But, you know, it's really a conversation, right? With myself and my client. And the conversation is, you know, what does the perfect deal look like to you? You know, that can be financially, that could be aesthetically, whatever the case, right? So if you are saying, you know, yes, this is the top of my budget, but I'd love to get a deal on X, Y, and Z. I'd love to get some credit back. I'd love to not have to pay X amount. I really would love to only pay this amount. You know, this is new construction. Would they be able to build out a closet for me? Like, you can negotiate. Anything's negotiable. You always say that. Anything's negotiable. Until somebody tells you no, and this is what my mother always used to say. Like, you won't know until you ask. And until somebody tells you no, anything is negotiable, right? So it was just important to like really, and I'm always looking to get my clients a deal. So that was also very important.
Exactly. Agreed. And I think that deal was really critical for us before we got in contract because it allowed us to have these conversations about what we wanted. But this was also the time when Janet introduced us to our real estate attorney, Mahal. So it was almost, you know, a tag team of we're trying to get the best deal, but we also want to kind of prep the legal side of it. And so thankfully in this case, we were able to get that deal solidified. And thank God, that was probably the best news after all this searching. And, you know, that
we
was
went
like,
back and forth.
We went back and forth. Yeah, it was weeks. But once we got that approved, we knew now, you know, that we can then move on to contract stage. And in terms of real estate attorney, we were blessed to have you suggest one to us. But is there another way to find an attorney?
Again, New York is unique in the sense that we are one of the few states that require an attorney in the process, right? I always say, definitely key thing, your real estate attorney should be one that is based in New York City and that has done, you know, the type of deal that you're dealing with. So whether it's co-op, whether it's condo, but it really should be a New York State attorney. Please don't go and get somebody from Alabama. Please don't go and get somebody from California. By the way, that can make or break your deal. Because if they don't know how to negotiate, if they don't know how to handle the due diligence and what to be looking for and what to be reviewing, it could kill your deal. I've seen it happen. So it's that's the first and foremost. And then also, again, you know, referral. I happen to have, you know, on my preferred list as well, I have 3 attorneys that I, essentially have worked with throughout my career. And Mahal just happens to be one that I do a lot of business with, just because people really just, I don't know, something about her. When they talk to her, they are like locked in because I always provide 3 options,
Perfect. One question was, how much down payment did we have to put at contract signing? What was contract signing like? For us, a lot of things were virtual, which was very helpful. Mahal was able to kind of coordinate with us through, you know, a digital contract that we reviewed. We gave feedback through it. We went back and forth on email, hopped on Zooms if we needed to. So that was very convenient. And in our case, I think half of the down payment, I think that also could be part of the deal. But in our case, we put half of the down payment at contract signing, which, you know, was locked us in, but also kind of gave us that feel that, you know what, this is it. We're kicking off the contract stage and we're moving closer to closing.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, once you're locked in and the contract is executed, if you as a buyer decides to pull out of the deal, you lose your deposit.
Right.
And trust and believe, a seller will take action on that.
Right,
so be very sure before you sign the contract, make sure that everything that you want in there has been negotiated and it is in that contract.
Right. All right. So now we're in contract. And one question that I heard several times between Instagram, YouTube, DMs was the time frame, between contract signing and closing. So between contract signing and closing was about 2 to 3 months. I think, I think it was about 2.5 months for us. And that was because that was when we were working closest with our lender. So we were looking at just finalizing the financial side of it, making sure that we're locking in interest rate, that we are sending in our bank statements regularly, and they were checking up on our credit regularly, as Janet mentioned earlier. One of the things that's really critical here was the appraisal. So we had to make sure that we had the unit itself appraised because we went in at a certain purchase price. However, the lender, the bank, has to be confident that the unit actually appraises at that value or higher. If it appraises lower than that value, then we would have to bring the difference to the table.
Correct.
So it was really critical to make sure that the purchase price we all agreed on, that the appraisal came back at that value or higher. And so that was one step we were taking in between contract and closing. So checking up on our finances, locking in interest rate, getting that appraisal, and then eventually getting a commitment letter. That was critical. So even though the bank is working with you, at this point, they have to commit to getting to the closing table, essentially. And so that's what took about 2.5 to 3 months in our case. And I don't know if you have any other comments on that.
So in regards to the appraisal, when you're negotiating the deal, your agent is going to look at the comps. They're going to look at what's sold in the building. They're going to look at how much it's sold for.
Right.
Because a lot of the times those units, you know, they will probably be financed, right? A lot of people are doing financing, regardless of what the interest rates are. Right. But if it's financed, then you can kind of tell that that's what it's going to be priced around. And even if it's not financed, even if it's all cash. Right. So that gives you an idea on what to negotiate price-wise, because you don't want to overpay. Right. For the buyer, you guys are okay with underpaying, right?
Exactly.
But you don't want to overpay as a buyer. So, so all that being said, it's going to be important to have your agent kind of like look at the comps, especially when they're negotiating, to figure out the best price.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you have that commitment letter, then tech and the bank is ready to has the clear to close, right? Meaning they have to have all their funds ready. They have to be ready to sit down at the closing table, you know, bring all the funds together, and as well as your remaining earnest money, to, you know, be able to close. So that's,
Exactly. And as, like Janet mentioned, in terms of the appraisal, making sure that the purchase price was already negotiated. In our case, huge benefit because we got an appraisal that was higher than our purchase price. So we came in knowing that we had that little gap in equity, and that was such a blessing.
And we got a great deal on this.
We got a great deal, and that's why it's really important because we had an agent that understood the neighborhood, understood the building, and we were able to lock in a particular price on contract, but the appraisal came back higher. So we're like, thank God, you know, so that's something to keep in mind. All right, so now we're moving closer to closing date. Once we had that commitment letter, we were able to lock in a closing date with March 28th. I will never forget that day. But a few weeks before closing date, Janet contacted us to actually do a final walkthrough. And
punch list walkthrough.
Yeah, punch list walkthrough. I don't know if I knew that was even coming. So it was really exciting just because we got a chance to kind of look at the space again and make sure that, you know, all the little things are covered and any fixes, anything we wanted to just make sure was ready for closing day could be done. So Jen, if you want to talk about that a bit more.
So to be clear, the punch list walkthrough that Oye and Jeff did is only relevant in a new development, or new construction, because it's from the ground up. And with that punch list, essentially everything is supposed to come like pristine. If there's a scratch on the floor, if there is cracks, you know, in the crown molding, those things need to be fixed, because sometimes, a lot of the times when they're showing these apartments, people are walking through and then there's, you know, damages, whatever. So we schedule the punch list walkthrough. We usually like to do it a couple weeks in advance.
I feel like it was about 2 weeks in advance.
And the reason for that is because you want to be able to give the sponsor time to make any changes or any fixes, you know, before the closing table, because you will always have a final walkthrough. And the
Right.
final walkthrough, we typically like to do 24 to 48 hours before closing.
Right, exactly. And at closing, and Janet met us a little bit later. So at that point,
it was really,
it was really about us working with, it was really about us working with our attorney and the seller itself to close. At that point, I would say it took about 2 to 3 hours total, which was shorter than I thought. I don't know, in my mind it was an all-day thing, but 2 to 3 hours was long enough. It was a whole bunch of signing. And it was just to kind of get us to that finish line and also make sure that, the numbers match. And it was an opportunity for us to sign our documents and just, prep to get the keys. So Janet came to celebrate with us. It was fun, So I think at that point, it was really an opportunity for us to look back at the last year plus and celebrate the win.
And what was it? I think you got like a whopping 30 cents or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Because sometimes you do get cash
back. If there's any cash back, you get cash back. Yeah, I got 30 cents back. And I literally had a 30-cent check. And that wraps up all the questions. Thank you all for submitting questions. It was honestly
some good questions too.
It was honestly such a great experience. I think, having Janet really be our armor, for lack of better words, throughout the process was very helpful. And, if you guys have any questions, all her information is below. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Sorry. So in terms of the process to save up, when we had that oh my gosh, keep it.
Girl, sip some water.